Campaigners say they're cautiously optimistic ahead of a public inquiry into contaminated blood. Thousands of patients were infected with hepatitis C and HIV in the 1970s and 80s, many at Oxford Haemophilia Centre. Andrew Evans is the chairman of the campaign group Tainted Blood. He was infected himself at the age of just 5. Andrew, really nice to talk to you again. What makes you optimistic this time about the inquiry?
Hi, Howard. Thanks for having me on. I've met the chair, Brian Langstaff, on a couple of occasions now. He seems like a good bloke. He was certainly in listening mode when I met him. And I think if it was down to him only, I think he'd do a good job. But the reason I'm cautious at the moment is that the terms of reference to the inquiry haven't actually been properly set yet. They still need to be passed by the Cabinet Office, which of course is an arm of government, and government, as we know, have been so obstructive to getting this inquiry to us in the first place. So I think we've got a little bit of a hurdle to get over just yet. But I think once we've worked with the chair a little bit more, as I say, cautious optimism is the by phrase of the day.
As you say, this has taken an unfeasibly, ridiculously long amount of time to get to the stage we're at, Andrew, and many people have lost their lives in the intervening period, obviously with the infected blood. What ultimately is the goal here? What do you want from the public inquiry?
So I think maybe it's worth just going over what we believe happened. We believe that warnings were ignored in the first place, which allowed these new products, these factor concentrates, to come online far too early and to not be withdrawn when it was evident that infections were taking place across the world, especially in the USA. I think we had 2 or 3 years lead time where infections were happening there, where, that could have been seen as a warning to what would have eventually happened and did happen in this country, but that was ignored. We also believe that there was some non-consensual testing going on of patients, and we think that that's to do with research purposes. We were effectively being used as guinea pigs to see how the progress of viruses like hepatitis and HIV progressed. The third thing is that a lot of patients telling us that they weren't told in time with their infections to be able to prevent their partners from being infected as well. And we know that a significant number of partners were affected with HIV, particularly through sexual transmission. And the fourth thing, and I can't put it any better than Andy Burnham did in his valedictory speech in Parliament, which was that this is a criminal cover-up on an industrial scale. So those are what we believe happened. What we would like for this inquiry to do is to test those theories and come up with a yes or no answer. Those are the answers I think that most people would like to know.
And you yourself, I say you're infected when you're just 5. How old are you now, Andrew?
I'm 41 now.
And how has it affected your life, having this sort of hanging over you? Not just the fact that obviously you want the public inquiry and everything, but dealing with the health issues every day.
Yeah, being infected at age 5, we're talking obviously 36 years ago now, and it was at the forefront of the AIDS epidemic. There was no such thing as treatment for the virus back then. And as a result, I went on to contract full-blown AIDS at the age of 16. And that 4 or 5 years following that was a section out of my life that happened during my formative years, and I'll never get it back. And that's obviously changed my life completely from then on. Luckily, and a lot of other people didn't, about 4 out of 5 people infected with HIV have not survived. Luckily, I did. But, since then, I've been very lucky in that I've managed to rebuild my life. I'm happily married with 3 children, and I've managed to make something of my life, which, to be honest, is a huge rarity within our community.
Andrew, stay strong. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing that, and we'll obviously follow the story as we have done for many years with you on this. Just to give the government's view here, they say it's committed to a full inquiry to ensure victims and their families finally get the answers they've spent decades waiting for. You're listening to Andrew Evans, who's the chairman of the campaign group Tainted Blood.